Hey everybody, this is John Eric Bentley, the voice of Barrett Wallace from Final Fantasy VII The Remake, Nick Fury from Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, and so many other projects, and you are listening to Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Kasanova Podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, I fly and I soar, but I aspire for more. Took some time so I can show you how this lion can roar. Sound the sirens, let them know I'm standing right at the door. I'm defiant, cause I know that I'm a giant at core. Yeah, I'm that boy. Let them know that I'm next level. I'm a whole new kind of guy, yeah.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Kasanova Podcast, as well. This is a joint collaboration of my two podcasts on one. So Hawaii's #1 tech and gaming podcast, DeckedUP, a gaming and tech podcast, is also going to be on this too. Yeah, I just said that. Anyways, it's a joint podcast. I'm putting it on both shows. So I'm your host, Mekel Kasanova, and I am joined by a very, very special guest, a good friend of mine, and the man who married me, the one, the only Montana West, aka ChickenMan. How you doing, man?
I'm doing excellent. I'm excited to be on both of these podcasts.
Awesome. And and what's funny is we've talked about doing this for a couple years now.
Yeah, for sure.
God, just life's so crazy.
There's always so much going on, and it can be hard to make plans and stuff, but I feel like that's the beauty of being friends is we can be like, you know what? We'll get there. There's no like pressure to do it right now.
Yeah.
And here we are. We got here.
Very true. Very true. And especially like with the creator journey, like a lot of people really don't understand how chaotically busy that can be. Like a lot of people literally think, oh, you just hit record and go, or you just hit go live. And there's so much behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy.
I think if you just hit record and go or just hit go live, you can have a lot of fun, but you're not going to get any traction. There's a lot of work that goes into making something professional, right? Into taking it from that level of, you know, just a guy with a webcam and a microphone and bringing it up to something entertaining that people want to see and want to watch.
Definitely.
And that's where all that work comes in.
Awesome. So today, sir, and I told you before we hit record, and I'm going to tell the audience because they need to know where we're driving this car today. The DeLorean people is going to be going back in time, and we're going to be talking about this man's journey from acting to living in Hawaii to moving and content creating. You're a Twitch partner too. So we gotta, this journey has a lot of stops. So, sir, the floor is yours. Where would you like to start?
Well, in 1991, my parents, we won't go back that far, but in a lot of ways, the way I was raised does have a lot to do with where I've ended up. My name is Montana West. That's my given name. And I feel like with a name like that, I was kind of destined to try to go be somebody. Like acting is, not out of the realm of possibility when you're given a name like that. So, I was raised around a lot of performance, a lot of music and things like that. And it made me just love, again, just performing, just being on stage or being in front of an audience. And it's never particularly mattered to me what I'm doing up there. I just want to be in front of an audience as much as I do get terrified, as much as I do get nervous, I do get stage fright. I get those chills and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the good stuff. I want to perform, which is what drove me to acting. Like you said, I spent a long time working in theater and doing a lot of live performance, doing some video performance, even some voice acting back in the day. And I just love doing that kind of stuff. And I think it was a natural transition to get into streaming as somebody who also loves video games. That was a great combination of the two things I love to do.
Okay. So I have to ask you, what type of actor, if the audience wanted to know, are you a method actor or just, traditional, you read the script and then we go from there? I believe you can become the character. but I know you, so
I don't think I've ever really pushed for method acting. I think there can be a sense of like getting into character before like a scene or something like that. And
Mhm.
it can be a lot easier to just stay in character, like in between takes, say if you're filming, or in between scenes if you're on stage. So in that way, yes, I like that does make a lot of sense to me. I would stay in character if I had an accent. I absolutely speak in that accent off stage. 100%. It's just
Wow.
easier to like keep my brain focused on the mouth words that I need to do, which is it's you don't think about it when you just speak, but when you're speaking in an accent, you're constantly thinking about the way your mouth is shaped. But
Oh.
like I'm not going home in character. The moment that's over, I'm done. Like I am suddenly myself, and it actually I think it's like a weakness almost that I have is I too heavily am just happy to just be back to myself. Like I leave it too soon almost.
Mhm.
And sometimes I spend too much time just being myself when like maybe I should just focus on the character a little bit more.
So, in total, how many years have you been in theater and acting, roughly?
I mean, I have a very distinct memory of being in a show in second grade. So
Wow.
that's probably as far back as acting goes to me. I like the kid who had the main role got in trouble, so I got the main role, and I was super stoked about that. Um, and I was like, maybe that influenced a lot of the direction of my life. But even before that, like my grandmother, taught piano for 45 years, so I took piano lessons with her, and we do recitals at the end of the
Mhm.
year. And I hated it, but I would go up there and I would like play, my chopsticks at 5, 6 years old in front of an audience. And I feel like even that really contributed to just that desire to perform.
Awesome, awesome. And would you say that's when you got the bug for acting, or is it
Yeah, I
later?
mean, I feel like that's what it goes back to is just those early days of um having that stage fright and getting over it and doing it anyways made me realize
Mhm.
how much fun it could be to be on stage. And I talked to a lot of people who are like, "Oh, I could never get in front of an audience. I have that stage fright." And I'm like, "You don't understand. I get stage fright too. Before I go perform a show, like it feels like I'm going to throw up. I have to go pee 100% of the time. I always pee within 30 minutes of going on stage every time because I get so nervous. But once you push through that and you get to that stage where you're actually out there and you're doing your thing, your mind is working so quickly. And there's really nothing like it that I've experienced. Like the closest thing would be like skydiving. When you before you jump out of the plane, terrified. But the moment you're out there, you're like, this is awesome. Like I'm falling right now. This is amazing. There's no fear anymore. You've already done the hard part. You've already walked from backstage out onto stage. And
Awesome.
every time I chose to do theater, I would always have that like, maybe this will like I'm going to be too scared. I'm a little afraid. I don't want to do it. And it's that fear of failure almost of
Mhm.
going out there and like forgetting your lines. I've forgotten lines. You just push through. Like the audience doesn't notice 95% of the time. So once you are out there and you realize maybe it's not that big of a deal, I can do this. And
Yeah.
it's like a really powerful thing.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, uh, it's like as far as acting, well, not once. I actually did it in college, and I absolutely loved it. I think we did Waiting for Godot, we did Hamlet, we did a couple comedies, and I I swear to God, I constantly screwed up on lines, but I was the type where I'm like, I need to know the character's thought process, and I had to become the character. So like I would improv every time we do a show, my lines would always be different, but it's so in the character that the director was just like, I'll just go with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And that can absolutely work really well for a lot of a lot of characters and a lot of shows, like the ability to improv in character is so helpful. And it's also really useful, like if something does go wrong, right? And you have to
Yeah.
like improvise improvise a line. Maybe a character is late, they're costume changing and they're not there yet. You guys got to figure that out.
Yeah.
And I think improv is a really powerful tool. That being said, I hate improv. Any like
Really?
improv class I took, I it was like the worst thing in the world. I learned so much and I'm so happy that I have that knowledge, but I did not enjoy getting it. It was like one of those things that I would always go up on stage and be like, that feeling of like, oh, this is I'm up here, I'm doing it. It's not there for me whenever I like have a forced improv thing that I
Yeah.
have to do. I'm definitely not somebody who wants to go be in an improv show, you know, your local improv comedy. I'll go watch it, but I do not want to be up there.
So how much would you say, like, with your background in acting and theater, has been able to, on top of voice acting too, how much would you say that incorporates into doing content creating and streaming? Like, does it make it easier for you, or?
I mean, I think overall, yeah, it makes it a lot easier. I also spent a lot of time working in tech theater, so a
Mhm.
lot of that aspect has really transferred over for me in, you know, figuring out how to set up cameras and microphones and lights and like all the audio equipment you need to make this kind of stuff work has been a lot easier, I think, and
Mhm.
a lot more interesting because yeah, I'm somebody who loves to do this kind of stuff. I even like messed around in Blender, like making whole sets for my stream and stuff. And yeah, a lot of that is very directly related to the theater work I did. Um, on the other hand, though, yeah, as an actor, I want to go out on stage and be fully prepared. I want to know my character. I want to know my lines. I did a lot of musicals, so I want to know songs and dances. I want to have it. I want to have a costume. I don't like going on stage in like normal clothes. I need to be in costume to really feel like I can perform.
Mhm.
So before I, you know, get ready to turn on the stream, I always feel underprepared because I'm not in costume. You know, maybe
Mhm.
I decided what I was going to wear, but it's not like a full thing. It's just stuff from my closet. And you know, I don't have a script, right? Streaming is
Mhm.
unscripted. A lot of content creation is unscripted. We have not scripted this unless I'm really mistaken here. You know, so it's a lot of learning how to trust yourself to make
Yeah.
those right decisions in the moment and be entertaining. Again, it is kind of that improv thing in a lot of ways. And it's a lot of reacting to what is happening in front of you. And so that's actually been kind of a struggle for me
Really?
in that I do always want to do something very specifically entertaining. And I mean, at this point, I do have a dozen costumes in my closet just for streaming. And I do very specifically focus on that aspect of it so that I don't feel like I'm just there sitting in front of a camera. I want to have those specific items to work with as I'm
Okay.
performing.
Okay. Yeah, like streaming, I'm gonna admit, I'm absolutely god awful at streaming. And in my honest opinion, there's like I've always been off and on with it. Like if I can get into the routine of being able to like stream on a regular schedule, oh, I can definitely, improv, do all the stuff and have a good time with it. But when, since we had Ezale, it's been so inconsistent. Like now I'm down to once a week, and then like when I hit record, I'm like, oh crap, I need to talk. Oh, I'm playing the game too much. Like it there's like people who aren't in the role of the streamer don't know the psychological aspect of it. Like there's so much. Like you got the technical aspect, like, okay, is my audio interface working? Am my lights right? Is the camera right? Is there any like latency, or am I losing ping or anything like that? And then like, okay, I need to be entertaining because yeah, people, if they want to watch gameplay, they're big streamers. They just do gameplay and barely talk. But
Mhm.
for most of us, we have to be entertaining because people are technically coming to us for the entertainment. And so I feel like oh my gosh, she's almost 3. So I feel like over the last 3 years, like I've kind of lost that. And it's like, as I've been doing the charity streams, I'm trying to like recapture that, but because it's like one day a week, it's so hard. But like, it's funny because when Lehua streams, it's just entertaining. I'm like, I don't even care what you're playing, just because she it's like I've always told her like it's so entertaining to watch, especially if she plays a horror game.
Oh
Oh my
my
god. So I need to learn from you too, because I suck at it.
I mean, she's absolutely a very entertaining person just to speak to, just
Yeah.
in life. And yeah, it is. You're 100% right. It can be really, really difficult to make sure you're like getting that interaction while you're trying to play a game too, especially if you're playing something that's like really focus intensive. I get huge tunnel vision and I'm like, I don't think I've said a word in 20 minutes. Just nothing. But that's honestly a big part of the reason these days I almost entirely just commentate like
Mhm.
professional StarCraft. And it takes kind of that load off of me. Like I'm not playing the game. Those guys are playing and they are so much better than me. And there's a lot of like back end work I have to do, organizing tournaments and stuff that doesn't necessarily get seen on the front end. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I get to just focus on just being entertaining, right? I'm just
Mhm.
talking about the game. I'm just trying to, you know, keep things going. And it makes it so much easier in a way to not have to be actively playing a game because yeah, I get so focused. And I honestly I also feel like I'm not a very good streamer if I'm just playing a game and having to talk to chat.
What?
I don't know, man. It could be a struggle sometimes. It's hit or miss.
So how did you get into doing TO and tournament organizing as well as like professional casting? Like, how did you tell us that story?
Well, so I mean, you know this, but I'm a StarCraft 2 streamer. That is like
Yeah.
the only thing I really do.
It's a
And so I was
phenomenal
just
game.
playing it, streaming as you do. Somebody reached out to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to co-cast some matches?" And you know, it was a lot of semi-pro matches, and it was a lot of fun. And it made me realize that like back in the day when I first started playing StarCraft 2, what really sucked me in was the esports side of it. Like more than
Mhm.
anything else, is the esports and the community around that that like really brought me in. You know, I love the game, but I think if it was just the game, I probably would have stopped playing it years ago. But the community brought me right in, and I was so just stoked about it. And I love the idea of commentating, again, being on stage, right? Being in front of the audience, just getting to be there talking about this game that I love so much. And I realized like, hey, I could just do that. You know, there's always tournaments happening. They need like community casters to cover them.
Mhm.
Um, and so I just kind of started hitting a lot of the small stuff and gradually over years started casting bigger events and things like that. As far as tournament organizing goes, you know, if you want something to be able to cast regularly, the only way to do that is to put the tournament on, right? So
Mhm.
I started just putting my own tournaments on weeklies and bigger events. And that's been actually the most successful part of my stream over the last few years. It feels like the tournaments I'm putting on have gotten bigger and bigger, and the players playing are suddenly the best players in the world. And that's been like really, really satisfying to me. That has been more indicative of um, like the growth of my content creation than anything else. Is that now I have an open channel with all these players and these community figures that I looked up to for so long, and now I feel like I'm almost part of that. You know, like
Mhm.
I am in league with that group of people, and that's been really great in the last few years.
Awesome. Awesome. So, all right. This is it's related, but not related. This show is completely unscripted, people. So, StarCraft 2. I love it. I love StarCraft 2. When do you think we're gonna get 3, or are we gonna get 3?
That's a big question. That's a big question. Fortunately, I've thought a lot about that question recently, so I have a nice big answer for you.
Okay.
Um, About a year or two ago, I would have said, maybe 2 years ago, I would have said, there's no shot. StarCraft 3, if it never happens, I wouldn't be surprised. But a lot has developed more recently. One of the major factors that makes me think StarCraft 3 is absolutely a possibility. Microsoft acquired Blizzard,
Right.
Blizzard Activision, right? So that's going through right now, I believe. And Microsoft has shown a lot of love for the RTS, the real-time strategy genre. They made Age of Empires 4. They've been keeping patches up with the games they already own in that genre. And StarCraft 2 is far and away the largest game with the largest player base, over the last 13 years it's been out in that genre. So it would make sense for them to kind of focus on that a little bit. I've even heard tell that they're kind of aware of that StarCraft 2 does have a big player base and fan base. And it wouldn't surprise me if StarCraft 3, if it's not on their radar now, is soon as just, the early development. We also have a lot of other RTSs coming out from indie game developers that are made from. There's one in particular, Frost Giant, is making the RTS Stormgate, and that's slated to come out sometime not too far in the future, within the next year. And I've been playing in the alpha of that. They've been working really hard. A lot of the people involved worked on Warcraft 3 and StarCraft 2, and it's gaining a decent amount of traction. And I think if that continues on, there's some other ones coming out as well. Zero Space, there's Immortal Gates of Pyre. There's a few more. It feels like right now there's kind of a clump of RTS games that I think if that starts to build, and once those really come out, if that explodes even just a little bit, StarCraft 3 is almost undoubtedly going to start getting worked on at Microsoft. It would shock me if they didn't see this RTS renaissance that, to me, it feels like is very clearly coming for us.
It's so crazy. I was having this discussion with Lehu the other day that gaming right now, the amount of genres that are getting just so much love, RTS games, traditional RPGs, old school beat 'em ups, fighting games, everything is getting a moment to shine right now. And it's especially this year, and next year's going to be crazy too. Probably not as crazy as this year, but there's literally, this is the best time to be a gamer because there's so much choice. Yeah. But it's the worst time because you don't have a lot of time to play everything.
That's true. I will say I've filled all my free time lately with Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh my God.
I've just been completely stuck on that. Yeah, man. There's not enough time to play all these games. I see people talking about second playthroughs. I'm like, man, I am not even halfway through my first playthrough. How do you guys have the time for this?
I don't get it at all. I see the people that are like, oh, I'm going up for 100% completion on this game or that game. I'm like, how do you have this time? I'm still even games that I've reviewed, not every single game I beat. A lot of them I'm like, okay, because I have this thing in my head where okay, if I get to 67% through the game, all right, I played enough to be able to write a review for it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the games, when Starfield came out, I got a review copy of that, and people were like, Mekel, where's your review? I'm still playing it.
I'm working on it. This is an open world game with
right?
So many options of things you can do. Yeah.
You had that, and right before that, you had Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm like,
oh my God.
I'm still playing Baldur's Gate 3. I'm playing, it's funny because Lehu and I were we'll alternate off because she's obsessed with it. She gets a chance to play it. I'm like, all right, she's going to play for 10 minutes. Nope. All right. A couple hours went by. Oh, hey, the sun went down. All right. He's still playing.
Yeah. That was actually my whole day before this was me thinking, I'll just hit Baldur's Gate for a little bit. Well, it's been 4 hours. I guess I guess I should probably eat dinner or something. I don't know.
And it's so crazy, like with that game. Like I know it's been in early access. Well, it was in early access for what, from
For a while.
October 2000 or 2020 all the way up until like it released. And I'm shocked at the quality
Oh
of
my
that
God.
game.
It's so like deep and rich. And it really is incredible the amount of work they put in to make that game what it is. And then like
Yes.
again, yeah, I've played maybe 60 hours or so, and I know I am maybe halfway through. Maybe halfway through. And that's crazy. That is a long time, and I know there's so many things I missed and so many different options I could have taken, different ways the game could play out and different ways it reacts to your decisions, which I feel like is a
Mhm.
thing that has been promised by a lot of games in the past and usually underdelivered, pretty much always underdelivered, where they're like, "Oh, your decisions affect the game world." And it's like, not really, like this much really. Maybe there's like a good ending and a bad ending. Whereas I feel like Baldur's Gate, it's like every little thing, there'll be dialogue from a random character in a random event. And I'm like, how'd you know I killed the goblins? What? I, I didn't have to do that. But it knows. It knows what you've done, the choices you've made.
I was gonna say a game that, well, a trilogy. Most of y'all probably know I'm going with this. Mass Effect. That was like, yeah, every choice is gonna matter. And then when you get to that last game, you get to the end. It's like, what color is the background?
It's funny you mentioned that. It was exactly what I was thinking of when I was talking about it. And it's like, that it's actually, it wouldn't be too bad if you hadn't promised it was going to be like this big thing. And I
Mhm.
feel like Baldur's Gate, they really lived up to that promise. And it's like you said, I feel like this year is such a good year for gamers. There's so many games that I wanted to play that I was like, if I start, I won't stop. I
Mhm.
know how much time I'm going to sink into this. And Baldur's Gate, like it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. I was like, I have to get this one. I've said no too many times this year. I'm gonna buy a new game and I'm gonna play the crap out of it. And I do not care if I should have done a bunch of stuff today. I don't care. And you know what I'm gonna do after we finish this podcast? I'm gonna play more Baldur's Gate. That is a promise.
And the other thing with that game that's so amazing is no two people are going to have the same experience. And
Mm-mm.
you can't say that about like 99% of the games that are out there. Like it's just, it blows me away. Like there are events and things that are triggering for like who are that? I'm like, I'll walk in the room, I'm like, how did that happen? Or how did you get there? And then the same thing, I'll do certain things. She's like, how did you get there? And it's just, the world is so alive. Like when I'm playing that, like I'm not here in Hawaii. I'm not here in this room. I'm literally in that game. And it's
Yeah.
just so chef's kiss. It's so good.
I also will say, related to Baldur's Gate, but I've been playing so much Dungeons and Dragons lately. And I feel like for some reason that's been such a big part of my life all of a sudden now that I'm in
Mhm.
like a couple campaigns and the movie came out like a year and a half ago.
Oh
Started
yeah.
watching that. Now we got Baldur's Gate. And it's like, I feel like there's a Dungeons and Dragons renaissance happening,
Mhm.
which I love. I love that. And I feel like that also speaks to the acting kind of thing. Um,
Oh,
get
I
to be a
gotta
character and improvise, and it's fun.
I gotta introduce you to, because I'm friends with the son of the creator of Dungeons and Dragons. So Luke
Oh yeah.
Gygax, he's a friend of mine. I gotta introduce you to him. He's so
Oh,
cool.
absolutely.
Like it's just no, but you're so right about this renaissance, because I've always been curious about D&D, but for me growing up, I didn't have anyone that actually played it. And then when I went to college, only some people played it, and then they were kind of
Mhm.
cliquish. So I was like, oh, how do I get into? Oh, you need to know how to do this already. I'm like, oh, okay, F you guys, fine. I'll go off and do something else. But like, since I've been playing Baldur's Gate, I'm over here like, if playing this game and if this campaign is this good,
Yeah.
I need to find some people to play this with. I need to learn. And now I get why people are so obsessed with D&D.
I mean, that's the beautiful thing is playing Baldur's Gate, you just are learning.
Yeah.
I'll be playing D&D and we'll be like, how does that spell work? And I'm like, well, in Baldur's Gate, this is how it works. And we'll look it up the description and be like, yeah, no, that makes sense. Guess we'll just do it the Baldur's Gate way. You get to learn so much about the game. And yeah, there's like a million different things you can do. There's home brews, and I think it's a really fun experience. I know it's like the ultimate nerd thing to do, but I've been really enjoying it.
Hey, but that goes to say, like, okay, so we're roughly around the same age. You're folks, he's a lot younger than me. I'm old.
Slightly, just slightly. Younger.
So it's when you look back at it, when we were growing up, being a nerd, being into tabletop games, being into gaming, anime, comics, it was not cool. Like it was something to be ostracized about. Is it surreal to you? I know it is for me to see how like fully embraced nerd culture is in current day.
Yeah. I feel like even when I was in high school, I started to see that kind of turn where, yeah, I mean, there's the nerds, you know, the
Yeah.
people who are in to absolutely every single one of the things you just described, and that's their whole world. And then there's the people who are like fully, completely against all of that. And I feel like as I started getting through high school and getting into college, that really, I don't know, the space between started to really fill up. And now if I meet somebody who, if I tell them I'm playing D&D and they're like, so nerdy, I'm like, oh, you're the weird one here, actually.
Yeah.
Like at this point, you're the weird one for like looking down on nerd culture. Cause yeah, like right when I graduated high school, the Iron Man movie came out. And so all of a sudden, comic books were like actively cool again. You know, the whole idea of the comic book world suddenly became this like fully mainstream thing. And it had been building up to that. There have been a lot of blockbuster comic book movies in the 2000s. But then, like, yeah, now all of a sudden the Avengers is like, everybody knows the Avengers. Of course they do. Whereas, you know, if I said that at 12, they'd be like, who is that? Who's the Avengers? You know, like, what is that? Who reads comic books, honestly?
It's I mean, I'm very grateful for it because I'm like, this generation coming up, they really, and it's interesting to say it, but they won't really have a perspective of or understanding of how like it was for us.
Yeah.
But it's great. I'm grateful that they get to enjoy it, embrace it without being like judged or ostracized or anything like that, because that was not fun back in the day.
No. And I will forever be grateful to the, like, in high school, the popular kids who were on the sports teams who did also play video games, because I feel like they helped so much for it not to be just super lame. There was like the whole track team in my high school, like my senior year or junior year, just got super into playing Pokemon on the Game Boy Color.
Really?
And like, that was like a cool moment. I was like, oh, like, hey, we're all not that different, you know? And I was like a theater nerd, really, but also a gamer my whole life. So it was cool that there wasn't that like hardcore view. It really did feel like it was melding. And there wasn't as much of like the ostracizing going on by the time I left high school. And you know, you watch like 80s movies and it's super prevalent. There's always the jocks and the nerds. And yeah, I feel like it's really changed since then. And I'm sure this generation will have its own whole set of issues. But at least that divide won't be there, won't be quite as strong.
Do you remember when like going into Hot Topic back in the day was like edgy, like Hot Topic, Sam Goody, Tower Records? Man. Like now it's like it's like everyone goes into there now.
Yeah. Hot Topic is just mainstream. Yeah. No, that was so cool when you were allowed to go into Hot Topic at like 13
Yep.
I felt very cool. My sister would take me, my older sister. She was a cool older sister.
Oh man, it's God, I love this. I love being able to reminisce about like our childhood effectively, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. Oh, God, it's so crazy looking at like okay. So for those of y'all who don't know, I recently turned 35, and 40 is on the horizon. I'm staring at it, and I'm like, God, I'm about to be middle aged. And it's just weird because like the concept of time, when I look back 2008, 2007, it doesn't feel that long ago. The early 2000s, hell, the turn of the millennium doesn't feel that long ago. Like I was watching a YouTube video where like I guess the kid was born in like 2002, 2003, and they were
Oh my
talking
God.
about it's mind blowing, bro. Like they were talking about like, oh, you ever heard of the Dreamcast? You ever heard of the Nintendo 64? And I'm like, I grew up with that. They're like, what was I don't know what it was like growing up in that time. And I'm like, yo, you're making me feel ancient.
This damn Gen Z, man. I'm looking at my N64 right now. How dare you? Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, I feel like the way time works in our minds is so interesting. Like, to me, the difference between 2009 and 2019 is basically nothing. Like, if I think about
right.
2019, that might as well be a millennia ago. So it's like right there next to 2009. But that's a big difference in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I was talking to my cousin who's flying in from Samoa here on the 19th, and he's like, Oos, I haven't seen you since like we graduated college. And I was like, it's like, wait, we graduated '09? 20, he's like 2010, Oos. I was like, I haven't seen you in 14 years. And he's like, yeah, he's like, crazy, huh? I like, but he's like, yeah, we talk all the time, but like, I haven't seen you in person. It's like,
Yeah.
God, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. And it's like, it's so crazy because like, we're like, him and we got into music together growing up. So like, he's into guitar. I'm into, like, I think he plays guitar, bass, drums. I play guitar, bass and piano. And like we used to have a little band called Edge of Reason. And it's so crazy. Like we were talking about this the other day about, again, this is nostalgia for you young folks who don't know. But like when alternative music and grunge was like the thing, and like you were considered an outcast if you listened to it, and like it's all the rage now. I'm like, oh my God, I remember listening to Blink 182 and Seether and all these other groups
Man.
growing up, and I'm like, I remember when the music, like if you wanted to express yourself, the music knew how you were feeling. Whereas like I mean, I'm not trying to crap on music now, but I feel like it's not as creative, or maybe it's just not for me. But I feel like our era of music was just it was so good. And to live through that. And then generations now are going back and listen like, oh, this is really good. It's like, yeah, we lived through that.
Yeah. It was really good. Thank you very much. I think about it a lot, actually, like modern day music and how I think a big part of it is how it's like disseminated. If you
Yeah.
want to listen to like good music, no matter what genre it ends up being, I feel like you have to go out of your way to find it. It can be really hard to come across it. Whereas, obviously for decades and decades, different radio stations would play kind of whatever style of music. They each had their own thing they went for. And if you got played on the radio, that's how your band like started making it.
Mm-hmm.
And even like local radio stations would play local artists, and nobody listens to the radio anymore. So that's kind of gone, right? Like you're not, maybe if I'm in the car and my Bluetooth isn't working, then the radio will come on. Or like if I rent a car somewhere and I don't want to handle the Bluetooth, I'll find a station. But it's always like classics or something, right? I'm not likely to try to find some modern music from a specific genre, you just don't get that as much. I feel like there's probably tons of good music out there coming out every single day, but you have to go find it. And I feel like that kind of sucks. I feel like the current generation has to deal with that. And I'm old enough. I'm stuck. I'm going to listen to the same music until I die at this point. So I'm not too worried about it. But you're trying to find new music. I feel like that's difficult these days.
It is like, I remember I used to go into Sam Goody and Tower Records, and like that's how you knew. Like you could buy the CD or you could buy the cassette tape.
Ooh, the cassette tape. Or your Walkman.
Oh my God. Walkmans, boomboxes. And it's crazy. Even MP3 players are considered ancient. Dude, I remember going on Napster and LimeWire to get music.
Oh, LimeWire. That was the best if you like wanted a 30% chance of getting the song you had clicked on, and like a 60% chance of it just being who the hell knows what, 10% chance of it being what was it, the Bill Clinton thing?
Yeah.
It was a beautiful thing, LimeWire.
Like it's crazy. Like I know people now go to concerts, so they'll go to Coachella and all this other stuff, but I remember back then in the early 2000s when like you found out that band was coming to your state or your town, it was such an astronomically huge thing. Like you had to go because you never knew if they were ever going to come back. Whereas like now, the whole, this is a tour. This is where we're going. And it's like, man.
Well, I know in Hawaii too, like a lot of bands don't make it out there. So I remember if there was a band I wanted to see and they were going to Hawaii, I was going to that show. Whereas, Seattle, this is a music city. So many concerts are happening. There's like multiple venues I can walk to here, which is fantastic. But it also means that if a band is coming through I want to see, I'm like, well, I'll catch them next time.
Yep.
I don't necessarily have to go see every single show all the time.
Speaking of Seattle, so I used to live there. Actually, I moved straight from college. So 2010 to 2012 or end of 2012. So I lived there. Absolutely love it. I still miss it. How is it now? Like, how do you, since you've moved there? How do you like it?
I love it. I'm just enjoying living in the city. There's a certain I think every city has its certain vibe, and whatever it is, it's really working for me here. The vibe of the people and the place. It's got its struggles. I think most cities do. There's some downtown is a little bit sketchy these days.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like really lovely areas, and I just love being able to pretty much walk to anything that I want to. I've spent too much time living where it's like you have to have a car. You really can't do anything without a car. Man, I hate that. I just want to be able to walk to like hang out with friends or go to the grocery store. There's like museums nearby. Even if I'm sick, there's like 3 hospitals near me, I can just walk to anything. It's great.
Yeah, that was one of the things I absolutely love when I lived there. So when I was living there, I was working for Microsoft under the Xbox Game Studio brand division, and it was just I was never bored. There was always something to do. Like my girlfriend at the time, her dad just got me into Microsoft, and so we would just like go around. We ended up eventually moving to Kirkland, which is really nice, more suburban. And I didn't mind it. It just I was bored. I was more bored there than when I was in Seattle, because when we were living in downtown Seattle, like literally he could walk wherever. There's always great places to eat, concerts, like if you're into art or you're artistic, you will never be bored. There's always something to do. And I miss that. Like, I love Hawaii. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know how much of this you'll agree with, but there's a difference of when you're a tourist versus when you actually live here. And
Yes.
like when you actually live here, you really don't go to the touristy spots at all.
No, I mean, I lived in Waikiki for a little while, so I totally get it. It's it could be nice, but at the same time, yeah, you're living there, right? Like if I'm coming home from work or something, I'm just exhausted. It's a very different experience than when you're like fresh and on vacation and having a
Mm-hmm.
great time. People all the time, every single time I tell them that I lived in Hawaii for 10 years, they're like, "Why would you move? Why would you come here?" And I'm like, "Listen, I know there's winter, which first of all, I love the winter. So, that's been great. Seasons are awesome, but you get tired of being kind of stuck on the one island. That was my biggest issue is like
Yeah.
if I wanted to go somewhere, I have the island to go to, or you can pay $600 and fly to a mainland city.
Oh,
And it's
God.
like that's it. Those are your two options. Whereas like, I drove up to a huge mountain yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Went up to Mount Baker and it's just like it's beautiful. And there's so many more places you can get to more easily on the mainland. Even flying is like can fly across the country cheaper than I can fly from Hawaii out to somewhere.
That's so
Um,
true.
so that's one thing that I really want to take advantage of on the mainland. But man, I miss Hawaii. I miss Hawaii a lot of times. The food is probably the number one. The food and the people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things like we we've talked about moving, but it's so hard when it's like one, family out here, two,
Yeah.
for the most part it's laid back. But like then you look at other stuff like, okay, the amount we're spending just to live here compared to if we were in Seattle, California, or Texas, or anywhere else, it's it's crazy how expensive it is, and like just the fact that the cost of living keeps going up, and especially like I don't feel like a lot of people here have recovered from the pandemic because that was astronomically bad. Like just the amount of jobs that were just letting people go, predatory practices of a lot of rental companies just trying to
Hmm.
like, oh, you need to give us money. How no one's got jobs, no one has
Yeah.
money. It's just and now that like folks with student loans are like, oh yeah, you know what, pandemic's over, now you can pay again with interest. Yeah, cough it up.
Great. Yeah.
Just yeah.
No, it's I mean I can imagine it got hit super hard out there. Tourism obviously is like the number one thing that Hawaii does. And I know a lot of people who lost jobs in the theater industry as well, like couldn't put on live performances when an audience can't be there.
Yeah.
So that was pretty rough for a long time. And I think a lot of places haven't fully recovered. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of issues in this city that are very easily traced back to things that happened during the pandemic. Businesses closing, and suddenly these areas become just full of a lot of people on a lot of drugs,
Yeah.
and then the businesses don't want to open back up there. And so here we are now. I hate walking past Third Avenue downtown, right? And it's like that's directly related to the pandemic.
Is that bad on Third Ave?
It's always bad on Third Ave. Yeah. There's like a couple of blocks that all the stores are pretty much closed. There's like a McDonald's open on the corner. It's not good over there. It's not good.
Wow.
So like that sucks. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah.
But we're all still trying to get back into it, I feel like post pandemic. It was like 2 years. It just kind of brutally destroyed a lot of our
Yeah.
economy.
Yeah. Like I know like here, so like for those of y'all who don't know, like give an example of neighborhoods that are generally quiet, clean, very tight knit communities. Kaimuki, Kapahulu area.
Hmm.
Um, for the most part of my living out here in Hawaii, I pretty much lived in Kaimuki. and like you rarely ever saw homeless, or it was very upkept. You had a lot of the community was very tight knit. Since the pandemic, there's probably a lot more that goes into this, but like the amount of homeless that have flooded into Kaimuki and how the neighborhood has really gone down, especially Kapahulu, has been bad. And I'm not saying, I've been homeless before. I have compassion for people that are, but there's different types of homeless. There are those who are just really down on their luck and they just need a break and an opportunity. And then there are those who are the drug addicts and just incredibly volatile. And the uptick in the volatile homeless has been bad. Like, I used to be able to walk through all of Kaimuki. Like, I used to go to Chaminade. I could walk from Chaminade to Waikiki, no issues whatsoever. Go down to Alawai, go get L&L on Kapahulu, go to the Safeway, no issues. You really wouldn't run into them. Now, you have to be worried about getting attacked.
Yeah.
Like you're finding needles. Like it's at a point where like if I want, like I try to every day take Ezel to the park to play, and like the park by the zoo and ones in Kaimuki, like you'll find just needles and syringes, and it's bad, bro. Like, and then you got the homeless. Like, I forgot the park we went to last week where you got the homeless there, like throwing feces at the kids, like little I mean, it's so bad. And like I've noticed too with like how if you're not from Hawaii, you may not get this, but like if you've lived in Hawaii, the Ward area, Ala Moana, Sand Island area used to be really run down. Used to have like a colony, like the homeless colony, especially over close to I'm trying to think what it's in Ward. They used to have the homeless colony there, which is it's not there anymore because they've completely renovated the whole. It's all like condos and renovated. The area's really upkept, so you don't run into any of that over there now. But by them doing like renovating that area, it kind of pushes them, which Hawaii does. They push homeless to certain different areas, and it's like as you're building this up, this area is getting destroyed. And while there are resources for homeless, I don't think there's enough programs and solutions to help the ones, especially the ones that are just strung out or mentally gone. And so it's just it's sad seeing like all the beautiful parks and locations where you can't go anymore. You can't take your kids to any of the parks out there without worrying about finding, like I said, syringes and needles. You can't most of the beaches you really can't go to without being attacked or accosted by one of the volatile homeless. And it's like, talk to politicians, whatever.
Yeah. Well, they're not walking through the parks, right? They're not going to those areas. And if they do go to those areas, those are the ones that get renovated. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned all the new condos over by Ward, and once a lot of money goes into one area, I mean, the homeless people don't stop being homeless. They don't stop using drugs unless we have programs specifically meant for that. But it doesn't seem to be the focus in a lot of places, unfortunately. And I mean, Seattle has a lot of the same issues. There are parks here where I would definitely not recommend taking kids or even going as an adult, that I wouldn't want to go to. And areas where, it doesn't necessarily feel safe.
Yeah.
And that sucks. Nobody wants that to be the case. And there's so much of this city that I love that, like, I hate that if I want to go down to the pier here, the Pike's Place Market, that I have to walk through an area that I don't feel safe in. Like that sucks to get to like one of the most touristy places. I have to walk through an area that, like I put my head down and I just walk, and there have been a lot of issues there in that specific area.
Oh man. Okay, so going back on a positive note, like
Yeah.
you know, that's sad to hear because
It's it's a solvable problem, and I hope that we're able to work towards improving it
yeah,
in the future. And I think we will, because these things haven't always been a problem to this degree, and there's reasons for that.
yeah,
Right. And I think, like we talked about, the pandemic really hurt a lot of people, and it hurt a lot of these kinds of programs, and people volunteering, I feel like, went down quite a bit at the time.
yeah,
So hopefully we can bring that back up as we regrow.
yeah. Especially like small businesses, like with the pandemic, so many small businesses and local businesses getting shut down nationwide. And even when they do try to come back, it's really, and I've noticed this out here where when it comes to local businesses, you'll have a local business and then you'll have what they're competing against, which is like a chain store or a restaurant. And instead of people going to the local business to support it, which it needs it, they go to the chain
Yeah.
business because the prices are slightly cheaper, whatever. And it sucks because there's so many places that just went out of business. And I'm like, man. Well, anyway, shifting to a positive topic. We getting out of the rabbit hole because we could go down there. But all right, so okay, where do we want to drive the DeLorean? Okay, so content creating.
All right.
We'll talk about that and how it. Would you say for you, since the pandemic, content creating has been more viable and more of a creative, not only a creative outlet, but a therapeutic outlet? Would you say that's been that for you?
I mean, it definitely was, like right at the beginning. It was immediately, I was so happy that I like had cultivated a streaming presence and I had this community. And I think a lot of people in the community felt that same way, right? Is like, hey, we have this group of people we already talk to and interact with, and all of a sudden none of us could go outside. All we could do is, if we had a job still, you can go to work and you can go home, and that is it. And I was lucky to work in a grocery store, so I got to keep my job. But I was also so lucky to have this group of people on the internet that we could still hang out with, and I could still turn my stream on and people would show up and be happy that I was there, and I was happy they were there. Right. And it was a very positive experience during, I mean, the whole time that, it was lockdowns and you couldn't, it didn't feel safe for a long time to be going out and going places. And like you said, a lot of places closed. There wasn't even a lot of places to go for a while. It was very, very helpful for me, and I think for a lot of people. And it did also feel a bit more viable. I felt like there were more people watching, which is just a big part of it. A lot of people had like less money to spend maybe, but if your audience doubles in size, you're going to see a return on people subscribing on Twitch or on YouTube, and you get more ad revenue and things like that. And it just really helps. It for sure helped me grow my channel quite a lot in that time.
Yeah, it's like I've seen people say like it's so hard to get into content creating, it's so hard to get into streaming, but I feel like the pandemic for a lot of us was a springboard for carving new careers, and I mean, kind of going back down the rabbit hole, but also coming out of it. But like, truthfully speaking, with people losing their jobs and losing their incomes and finding the content creating, streaming, all these different platforms, there's so many different ways to make money. And I feel like we've seen that there is the illusion that probably our parents, well, not really. Well, yeah, kind of they perpetuate that, go to school, get a good education, get a career, good job, get a career, and you have stability. The pandemic just proved that there is no stability in that. And like
Yeah.
you have to find ways to generate income. We saw the uptick in OnlyFans. Like I don't judge people to do, I have a lot of female friends who do OnlyFans, and I'm like, hey, you gotta pay the bills, you gotta
Yeah.
keep the lights on, you gotta keep food in your fridge. Like I even told Lahil, I said, get OnlyFans, show some feet feet pics,
Yeah.
like,
Absolutely.
it's like we're at a point, and I think I said this on a podcast that I was on earlier this week. Like content creating now, what a lot of people don't get, the people that think it's just like I said, like hidden record or going live, they don't understand that we're in a point where it is literally it's entrepreneurship. We still pay taxes and everything like that,
Mhm.
but if you look at the employment industry, the job sector, where it is now, where it's like you go to school, you get an education, you get a job, that's only 100-year-old concept. Before that,
Yeah.
you had people that had trades and skills and crafts, and they were entrepreneurs. They lived off the land and off of whatever their skill or trade was. Whereas like we've gotten in that rut within the last 100 years of thinking this is our tunnel vision. This is exactly what we have to do. Whereas like now it's like, that's not the only thing. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think the more you go into any sort of field, and in this case, like content creation, it really is entertainment. Like it's internet based entertainment, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many little like niche things that you can learn that can really help you just expand even past it or even deeper into it, where you get to work with a lot of other people. And like I wouldn't know the first thing about making a podcast, right? Like I understand the concept of it, but I know that if I started looking into it, it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and there's like all these different programs you can use and all these different ways you can make things happen. And just every single aspect of content creation has something like that. It's so much deeper than you realize it is. And you
Mm-hmm.
can get really into the nitty gritty of it. And I know I have some friends in streaming that are like super into it and look at every piece of equipment you could possibly think to need and alternatives to make things work with whatever your setup is. And it's such a deep field. And I do feel like there's a lot of skills you can learn that will help you outside of content creation as well. And that's like, yeah, like you're saying, you're an entrepreneur. You're making it happen. You're taking what you know and you're applying it to this situation. And that's what makes it interesting too, because everybody's different. Everybody has their different skill set that they can apply differently.
Yeah. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's crazy how so yesterday I sold my first audio interface, the Go XLR. I remember when that was the device.
Yeah.
That was the device everybody was pushing. All the stream coaches and gurus and content. They're like, you gotta get an XLR mic. You gotta get the Go XLR. You gotta get this. And it's like you had to have cameras and all that. Like you needed all that. And like in just roughly 4 to 5 years, we've gotten to a point where USB cameras are many times just as, if not better, than a DSLR.
Yeah.
You've got USB mics that are, you almost can't tell the difference between that and an XLR mic. You've got companies like Steel Series, like Elgato and Aver Media and more that have just come out with and Beacon has just, oh my god, they've everything you need, you can just get it. There's a software there. The learning curve is so much lower now than before.
Yeah.
I remember when Lehu and I got the Go XLR. I got the Go XLR. I got her the Go XLR Mini, and we were trying to we had to watch so many tutorial videos and how do you set this? How do you put the gain? Where do you put the gate? All this other stuff. It was so in depth, and you had to make sure you didn't have an air conditioner or a fan, because we didn't have software back then to take care of background noise. And now if you got an NVIDIA computer, you got NVIDIA Broadcast, which can cut out the audio around you and just focus using AI learning to focus on your voice. I use a software called Crisp that I've got an air AC right here next to me, and it literally completely cuts it out.
It's gone.
Yeah, you don't hear it, and it's you got it used to be you had to have certain lenses to get a bokeh effect or the blurred background. Now it's the switch of a press of a button, and you've got that, and it's so great. I've looked at it. I was watching one of Harris Heller's videos today where he's talking about I think he's talking about a capture card, and then there's another one he had where he's talking about audio equipment. And I'm just thinking man, if you getting into it now, you don't have to have the growing pains a lot of us had.
Yeah. it's so the like you said, the entry level equipment is so much better than it ever was. The old entry level equipment was you could get the Logitech C920.
Yeah.
And you can be 8 pixels and it says 30 FPS, but it's really 15, because it just if you move, you're gone. Your microphone was a massive, even the early Blue Yetis.
Yeah.
You're gonna touch your desk and it's gonna be so these are your entry level things. I remember I started with a headset mic. It's a $20 headset mic from Amazon, And these days, you can entry level. Your stuff is so good.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could still spend $30,000 on audio equipment. You can have a studio that's fully insulated, so you can record whatever you need to, put it underground so that no noise comes through. You have double layers of doors, so nothing comes through. You can still do that, and you can have a beautiful and amazing setup. The lovely thing is 99% of people will not notice at all. So, if you want to do that, you just got to know it's for you. The audience is totally fine as long as you are just crossing that baseline.
Yeah.
And these days, USB mics and webcams, they will cross that baseline 100%.
Yeah.
And that's very cool. If you're trying to get into content creation, it's so much easier.
It's so much easier. And it's I remember when stream coaching was a big thing. I know one of them. You probably know who she was. She has been she was very popular, and then got in controversy, then came back and was NFTs and got canceled, and then now she's doing health. And I don't have to say a name, y'all probably know from the context of what I'm saying. But I remember, and she owes me money because I wrote a whole book on podcasting, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna pay you for it and get it published." And yeah. Put that in her book she was hawking. Anyways, just say, not throwing any shade, just say, hey, you know who you are, you owe me money. Anyways, it's interesting where a lot of content creators have back, when they had to see all the stream coaches and the experts and whatnot, they used to think they needed all this expensive equipment. Like you said, 30,000 or so, you're just dropping money. That doesn't, like you said, people won't notice, and it doesn't improve the quality of the entertainment, which is you, the creator.
That is so true. It's no matter how much equipment you have, if you're not entertaining, at the end of the day, that's what matters more than anything else. Some of the most entertaining streams I've ever watched have been on the worst microphones you've ever heard in your life. And that's just what it is. If you can make that work for you, then do it. I don't sound good on terrible mics, so I got a good mic. I know I'm better on this good mic than I was on the headset microphone 6 years ago, but I mean, you got to just do what works for you. For some people, they don't care about the equipment at all. And that's, not part of what makes them good content creators. The equipment is honestly almost completely separate from being a good content creator.
Yeah. Would you say, like, because with you're doing YouTube, you're doing Twitch partner, congratulations on that.
Thank
Would
you.
you say that in the creator sphere, would you say it's you know like very difficult in the sense of like it's super competitive? Do you ever feel like
Hmm.
you're competing with someone else, or do you feel like truthfully you're competing with yourself?
I think more than anything, you are competing with yourself, and if you have good content, it will start to get out there.
Hmm.
Um, for the most part, I have found other content creators to be the most helpful people in the world. Like, there's just a whole community of people that I would certainly not have any of the knowledge, or I probably wouldn't even be streaming anymore if it wasn't for them. That
Hmm.
like taught me how to do it. And if I had questions, I would ask them, they would answer them. And I've sat on calls on Discord for hours troubleshooting issues with somebody who, man, he didn't have to do that. He had absolutely didn't have to do that. He could have answered my first question and been like, sorry, that's all I got. And I would have been
Hmm.
totally fine. Even that would have been nice. But he just sat there on calls. He's done this multiple times, and figured out the issues and made it just improve my stream immensely. 90% of the equipment I have is because of this one specific person recommending it and working with me to get what worked for me.
Hmm.
And like, I feel like if you're isolating yourself from other creators, you're just missing out on this whole world of people that know a lot about what you do, and you might have knowledge they don't have, but they certainly have knowledge you don't have. Nobody
Yes.
has it all. So you
Yes.
have to be able to work with other people. And some people, they are really competitive and they want to try to step on you to get where they need to be. And, maybe those people you got to try to avoid. But I think overall, for me, the way I see it is if you're directly making the same kind of content somebody else is, for the most part, rising tides kind of lift all the ships. And if
Hmm.
one person of a group of people making similar content gets big, those other people, they get a boost as well.
Yeah.
And that's been my experience watching it. Again, I do like StarCraft things, and when one person is getting bigger views, we're all getting bigger views. Every single one of us, because
Hmm.
once it becomes a little bit more in the mind of people, they're more interested in watching similar things like that. And if you're making that content, there you are. You
Hmm.
suddenly have a new audience member.
Yep. Yeah. I've definitely, on average, I've had more of the negative aspects, but I also
Mm,
I take accountability for that because it's like it's like bad relationships. You see the red flags and you ignore them. And you're just
yeah.
like, no, it's not that bad. And then when it turns out to be bad, it is. So I've had a lot of I've had the negative aspects of dealing with content creators that do like to step on, each
Yeah.
other or use each other to get things. Like, I'll give an example. The Steam Deck, that was the big thing. Not really the big thing now, but like last year when it came out, that was the big thing. And you saw so many content creators that branded around Steam Deck who just got into it, or they had, they were struggling and then they blew up with that. And, me already having a bit of a base, starting to cover that, covering, because I love PC gaming more than I love console gaming. But a lot of people didn't know that. So when I started covering Steam Deck and then more portable PCs, I started, you know, decked up. Which originally was a Steam Deck podcast, and I'm like, oh, I want to bring on these other Steam Deck creators and talk to them. And I didn't care what they had. I was interested in what they had to say because different perspectives.
Hmm.
And a lot of the experiences I had with them, not all of them, let me qualify, not all, majority were negative in the sense of when they saw who I was connected to, what company contacts I had, what PR, it became a thing of, oh, can you help me get this, this, and this, and this? And how
Mm,
I am, and generally, this is again for the viewers. If you ever lived in Hawaii, we just part of it's just the Aloha spirit. We just help each other.
yeah.
It's like we don't really think that much about it. So I was helping a lot of creators, and when they would get what they wanted out of me, I never hear from them again. And many of them that have blown up, I'm talking to the point of being flown to GDC and each PAX and all these other events, and nothing. Many I've had on the podcast that have gone on either on other people's podcasts or their own and just completely shit on me. Like, oh yeah, I was on this
Mm,
shitty little podcast, and oh yeah, this idiot helped me with this, but I'm not gonna. Yeah, I literally had that aspect with a
jeez.
lot of the Steam Deck folks, and I've had it, you know, in console gaming, which is why I've kind of gotten to a point where I'm very selective of who I do and don't work with. And you kind of have to have that. It's just like in real, IRL, you got to have some type of selectivity of the type of people you interact with. But, for the most part, while I've had that bad experience or bad experiences over the last near 10 years I've been doing content, I've had a lot of great experiences. Like I got to give a special thank you to, my friends over at GVG or Good Vibes Gaming, because, they've always taken care of me. They've helped me get further in me with branding, how I need to niche down and focus on certain things with my content to be able to do this as a full-time career. I've had, for every negative, I've had at least 10 positive to overshadow that. And it's, you know, like you said, like you can't be in a bubble,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So,
And it could be really hard, but a lot of times if there is somebody who's going to be negative, you just have to like cut it and let it go too,
yeah.
and I think it's something you have to do in real life all the time. Whatever you're doing. I could be hanging out at the bar, and if I'm having a conversation and it starts going south, just gonna I'm gonna move over to another seat. You know what I mean? Like, and that's sometimes that's just what you got to do. Two people don't always gel. Sometimes people are just out for themselves. They are not
Yeah.
worried about you at all, and that's just part of the reality. And that's I think the entertainment industry attracts a lot of that too,
Yeah.
just in general.
Have you ever, in your career in content creating, have you ever had to deal with FOMO and imposter syndrome?
Ooh, uh, I mean, I definitely get the imposter syndrome quite a bit, where I feel like, uh, people will put me on a certain level with other
Hmm.
people that I'm like, I'm not on that level. There's no way. And they're like, no, dude, you are for sure. And like in my mind though, I cannot put myself in that level with other people. I still feel like I'm just a little, streamer who's not really doing anything because
Hmm.
I'm just here for myself, right? And the idea that other people might see me as something more than that, it's like foreign to me.
Hmm. Okay. That also goes to show your character and how humble you are, and that's,
The most
you
humble.
know, you know, I would agree with that because like what a lot in entertainment in general, like you said, the entertainment industry in general, there's a lot of people that are out for themselves, and it's not that often you see people that are as humble as you, and it's refreshing. It's I appreciate it. I appreciate that about you. But the other thing too is like I know like you as a creator and you as a person, there's really no difference between like what you see is what you get, and a lot of that level of transparency and open and honesty in entertainment is not very common, and I'm very appreciative of you being the same guy in both instances.
I mean, I really try to make sure that's the case. That's something that like even when I first started streaming and just getting into content creation at all, I knew that I didn't want to try to be somebody else. I wasn't
Mhm.
trying to like cultivate something very specific. I wanted to I like the idea in my mind was if I meet somebody in real life who just knows me online, I want them to immediately understand I'm that same person. That like there's
Mhm.
no questions because I've met people before that I see online and yeah, it's a different interaction and that's not necessarily a bad thing because a lot of times people are just very specific parts of who they are online, right? They'll just
Mhm.
kind of show that one side of themselves and that's okay. They do that on purpose. They're cultivating a specific look, but that's not something that I wanted to do for my content. I wanted to just be able to be the person that I am
Mhm.
and not try to just have like a slim version of that or a slim piece of what makes me me.
Okay.
Because I knew that would just be too. It's like a lot of pressure. I feel like to
Yeah.
constantly keep up that image and yeah, too stressful.
And you also see a lot of people trying to keep up that image, like the mental aspect, the mental toll that takes on you is
Mhm.
it's not healthy. Um and I've fallen guilty to that too, of trying to like live up to the persona of Mekel Casanova and what people think I should be, and shifting all this and be like, oh, I got to be first to put this out, or I need to hit this embargo, I need to do this, I need to do that, and just honestly losing myself in that, and it becoming a very dark and unhealthy place. And I'm very grateful to Lehua for like being there, because she's been there when this content creating thing has been at its darkest for me,
Yeah.
and I've lost sight of who I am, and I'm just the mental toll. And a lot of people just, I was talking to my friend Black Oni about this the other day. We were talking about how like the psychological aspect of content creating, the toll it takes. You don't really hear a lot of creators openly talk about it, because a lot of people will shut you down saying like, oh, but you get to play on the internet, you get all this stuff for free, you get to do this, you have this audience, like you're just complaining, not understanding the toll it takes on you. There's a lot
Yeah.
of stress that, you know, just because you're behind the camera or you're posting about this, a lot of people quick to say if you get something, oh, you're paid, you're paid. Like, no, if a company sends you a product, you are, if you're in the US, you're federally obligated by the FTC to disclose that you got that. So if you see a person constantly posting, and I get shit on all the time for this, like, oh, you're posting about this. I got it. I'm federally required to say and disclose with you that I got this product. But when you want to have that conversation, people just, they're not receptive to it. And then you have to deal with the folks that may know you IRL that don't get it, you
Yeah.
know. Um Case in point, like my family does not understand what I do. Like they literally think he just plays video games.
I think that's
He's
a very
just
common thing for sure.
right. And it's like, how do you, for a long time, I was trying so hard to like legitimize and justify what I'm doing to my family and people friends and people I went to school with or I worked with. And it was driving me crazy until, I got to a point where it's like, all right, you don't get it. You don't have to get it. And I don't have to drive myself crazy trying to explain it to you. It just is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
So
It can be a tough thing. I feel like a lot of people don't get it, or they just don't respect it, right? You don't get
yeah.
a lot of respect talking about what you do to certain people, and that always hurts a little bit. It's like,
Yeah.
man, I've put so much work into this, so much time and so much effort. Um and people will get it, will get other things you do, but they just don't quite get this one. They don't understand, how it works or how hard you've had to work to get it. There's a lot of things people don't see going on, off camera that I've spent. There have been weeks where when I was streaming full time, I spent more time doing things off stream than I did on stream, and it's like
Hmm.
80, 90, 100 hours this week I worked on stuff, but you don't see that, right? You just see
Yeah.
that I'm live for 40 hours and that is it. And it's like,
Yeah.
man, there's so much else happening all the time.
Yeah.
And until you really, really do it, you don't quite understand. And it's really what it is when you're trying to make a living from it. Because you could stream for 40 hours if you're just gonna flip the camera on and play your game.
Hmm.
But if you want it to like really work for you, you want to build your channel, there's so many more things you have to do. And it becomes very, very difficult. And yeah, it can be really hard when your family or your friends just like absolutely don't get it. And if they were just like, "Oh yeah, no, that's super cool," it wouldn't be too big of a deal. But it's that like
Right.
that lack of respect too that really gets to me,
Yeah.
where they're like, "Oh, you gotta go stream," or "Oh yeah, cool YouTube video, dude," and I'm like, "Man, go fuck yourself!" Like, come on, what'd you do today? How many episodes of that Netflix show you watch, huh?
Like, have you ever noticed, like, even with that, like, doing YouTube or streaming or anything, like, even when you post on social media, have you noticed that as a creator, you have infinitely more support from people that don't know you, but people who do know you don't give a fuck what you're doing. They won't
Yeah.
like, they won't share. But if it's a celebrity they like, it doesn't, they could be like taking a picture or video of them taking, like in the toilet, taking a shit. And they will reshare, comment. You post something like, he's playing, whatever.
Yep.
It is baffling and infuriating.
Yeah.
It comes with the territory, though.
It does. Well, it makes me really appreciate the people that I know in real life who do support my channel. Like
Yeah.
my sister spent a long time on my Twitch channel. She likes my Twitter posts when I post on there. She's in my Discord. I have a friend who I've known since the 7th grade who, he's been subbed to my channel for like 4 years at this point. And I just really appreciate those guys who do show that support, who did take the time to figure out what I was doing and were like, "Oh, this is super cool." And show that support, because yeah, it's few and far between in people that I know in real life that will even passively support, not even necessarily actively support, but just passively support it. Ask me how my stream is going, ask me what's going on, be like, "Oh, I'll subscribe to your YouTube channel." Sure, yeah, hit that subscribe button. Because a lot of people don't even take the time to do those basic things, to even ask you like what's your name online, what's your gamer tag. Most people don't even, there's like not even a baseline of care. They're like, great, don't give a shit. I'm like, yeah, well, I don't give a shit about you either, I guess. Fuck. Okay. I didn't know me talking about the thing I cared about that I've been working on for like 6 years was gonna turn out like this, but I guess if you don't care.
Right? So I got three final questions for you, trying to be completely respectful of your time. I know it's late where you are. Okay, I'll say that for the last question. The next one, how important would you say the social media aspect is for content creating, and
think
all
it's
the different
very,
all the different platforms that are
I think it's
available?
very important. There are so many platforms. I'm pretty bad at it. Um But I think it's really important to cover different platforms. And it's something like I've been focusing on more recently is just posting on YouTube as well. And I tried to start posting on TikTok too, and I'm just too old for that. I'm like I just so I even okay, I decided I'm gonna try to do the TikTok thing, right? And I was like, okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do research. I'm gonna go on TikTok
Mhm.
and I'm gonna scroll. Everybody talks about, yeah, ADHD, super easy to scroll on TikTok and waste hours. I was like, I have the attention of a hamster. Let's go. And man, I got bored in 10 minutes. I was like, I can't do this. I don't understand this platform. And that's been a struggle, and yeah, I feel like it is really important though to try to diversify and cover all the different bases, and you can have different content on different places because some people might just not use TikTok like me, but that doesn't mean I
Mhm.
won't follow you on Twitter
Mhm.
or watch the YouTube videos or like your Instagram posts, right? So you have different people that are on different platforms, and that audience reach I think can really help grow whatever your main platform is. I feel like
Yeah.
they all can kind of help feed into that. I overall I do think it's really important to branch out. I think if you're like stuck on one, you're gonna have a tough time growing.
Yeah. I would say main platforms, because I always recommend to people, if a new platform does pop up, create an account to secure your name on it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you need to start actually using it. Just secure
Mhm.
your name. But main platforms that I say to focus on, Twitter or X or whatever the hell they want to call it now.
Yeah.
Um, that and Instagram
Mhm.
primarily. Facebook, eh, mostly people and they don't typically give a shit what you're doing.
Yeah.
So,
That's
I
pretty
mean,
accurate.
other than that, I use at one point I was going pretty hard on TikTok, as was Lehua, and we both realized like we're not getting that carryover to Twitch or YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are we, especially when you need to upload at minimum 4 to 5 videos, and it's not easy to
Yeah.
make these short form videos. So it's like you got to do that every single day. You will burn out quickly. I would rather, and this is the thing I do. If I make a short form clip, I use CapCut. I'll make a clip and I post that same clip to YouTube Shorts,
Yep.
to Twitter, to TikTok,
Yeah.
to Instagram. That's it. I'm not doing.
Well, being economical with stuff like that is so important. I'm 100% sure you're not the only person who does that. I think you need to. I think you need to be able to do stuff like that, or you can cross-platform post things, because otherwise, you're not. I mean, you wouldn't make 4 different videos to post on those 4 different sites
Mhm.
4 times a week. You need like a team,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're a one person, so. I know how hard it can be editing a video. Like it seems it's so like simple. There's not necessarily a lot to it sometimes, but it's not easy. There's always, figuring out where to start and stop. And then you're
Hmm.
like, oh, I only have, my 1 minute to fit everything in. So I'm trying to cut the gaps between the phrases I'm saying so that it fits down to 1 minute. I'm like, oh, it's 63 seconds. I gotta cut out 3 seconds somewhere. I guess that intro's gone.
Yeah.
And it becomes a whole thing. And I love editing videos. I wish I could do that more, but it takes a long time to
Yeah.
edit videos and get them up.
Yeah. And um the other thing I want to say is like, okay, so for people who want, it's you being a Twitch partner, again, congratulations on that, because that is not easy at all to do.
Not easy.
So I've seen stream experts. I do quotations because I don't think there's it's not a one size fit all.
Yeah.
Everything is tailored. I've seen some stream experts or big streamers on Twitter have some of the hottest or worst takes, depending on what you think of them, saying that if you're streaming to 5 to 10 people, you're wasting your time. You shouldn't bother. How do you grow if you don't? That's like saying, okay, this might be a wild parallel or comparison, but it's like, the jobs that say you need to have this experience to get this job, but you can't get the experience unless you do the job. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. That's like what should you be doing instead if you're not streaming? How do you grow a stream without streaming? I definitely don't get that. I mean, I have a very specific streaming experience. I think the StarCraft 2 community is like really, really lovely and tight knit. And there's a really good, like just the thing that happens where almost every major StarCraft streamer will raid their whole stream into usually a smaller streamer at the end of their stream, or at least like a friend or somebody who they interact with. And I don't think that's a thing that happens in other communities. At least it wasn't for a long time. Like you wouldn't see that on Twitch. People would just end their stream, whatever. But in the StarCraft community, that's how I got any viewers on my channel. Was big streamers would just raid me. I would have 2 viewers and somebody would come in with 300 and suddenly I have 300 people who looking at my channel for the first time. And like I would not have gotten that if I wasn't streaming, right? You don't get those raids if you're not live. And a big part of, I think, the first like growth as a streamer is just being live, right? You haven't done this before, so you're enjoying it. As long as you're having fun and you're on there and you're being moderately entertaining, just playing your game, having fun. Yeah, people are gonna come watch and they're gonna stay. And that's not gonna happen if you're not live. In fact, I think it's more important to be live when you have 5 to 10 viewers. I stream maybe twice a week at this point, and I pretty consistently get about 100 average viewers just because I've already done that work. I've already built my channel up to that spot. Like you said, I already got the partner. I already got the followers. And now when I do go live, people know what they can expect. They know they can expect a certain quality of a stream. Whereas, when I was at 2 viewers or 5 viewers, it was just people filtering in from different areas that you need to spend those big blocks of time streaming to start gathering the basis of an audience. Those long-term viewers, those are the ones that are going to show up when you have 5 to 10 viewers. Those ones that'll sub, and in 6 years from now, they're going to be on their 70th month or whatever the math comes out to there. Those guys, they wouldn't be there if you weren't streaming a bunch at 5 to 10 viewers. I think it's so important in the early days of streaming to stream a lot.
Yeah. And I have to say, like, where I was able to grow, I think I was streaming on Twitch for the longest, and I think I barely hit 100 followers. And when I hit my first 1,000, because I gotta give a special shout out to my friend Jennifer, Miss Thickums. She's another Twitch partner. I was just streaming Double Dragon randomly one day, and like she came through. It was I want to say it was like 2019. She just came through, raided my channel, had hundreds of viewers, and just showed so much love. And like that helped grow my Twitch. I feel bad because I'm not consistent, and I want to be. I want to eventually make Twitch partner. That is that's on my bucket list. I don't know if I'll ever do it, but like she rated me, and like she still does. If I'm streaming and she finishes, she'll still come through and raid me. And she has this thing where she's like, if I have this platform and all these people watching, let me go show love to someone who's trying to grow, you know?
Yeah.
And because she said that happened to her too. And it's amazing. Like you can get like the streaming community for all the negative, amaranths and all the other stuff that are out there. There's some really good people. There's some really great communities out there. And it's just, yeah, anyone saying if you're streaming to 5 or so, you should quit.
No, absolutely not. I feel like that's the exact opposite advice I would give. If you've gotten to hitting 5 to 10 average viewers, you are already doing better than the vast majority of streamers.
Yeah.
Affiliate is 3 average viewers. That's hard for most people to hit. It took me a while to get there. And again, I wouldn't have gotten there without raids, without people hopping into my channel, bringing a bunch of viewers in. There's no shot I would have gotten there without that. So if you're at 5 to 10, you're actually kind of killing it.
Yeah.
So like keep going. Like you're doing good. And the only way you're going to become a better streamer is by doing it. You mentioned the experience for a job application earlier, but like for streaming, that's what it is too. Like you're gaining experience. You're feeling more comfortable in talking while you're playing. Maybe you're upgrading your gear, over time. So yeah, your audio quality is better. Your video is better. I remember, having a computer, I had to stream at 720 and I couldn't do 1080 and people would give me crap for it. And so like, yeah, I got a better computer. All of a sudden my stream just looks better. I can play on medium graphics instead of low. It was great. So like things like that over time. And yeah, that audience is only going to grow if you're streaming. Yeah. You know how many follows I get when I'm not streaming? 0. Nobody does that. Nobody follows a Twitch channel when you're not streaming. The only other way I think you can gain an audience or gain even like I don't even know what to call it, I guess, would be like networking with other streamers or with other content creators. And that can be a really hard thing to do in and of itself.
Yeah.
I feel like I got lucky in that I just also enjoyed watching people on Twitch. So I would just hang out in their channels and I became known as a Twitch chatter while I was also streaming. And then like at some point those converged. But I also feel like you can't just do that on purpose. You can't go into a channel and like be like, I'm here to network. You just got to be there to hang out. People will see right through that.
It's like, oh, follow for follow.
Network. Yeah. Oh my God. Those are great. It's like, no, but it's not. What are you doing? Because we're not going to watch each other's stuff.
No.
I had somebody message me a follow for follow once and I was like, you know what? Sure. I'll never watch your channel and you will never watch my channel. And also this is just going to make sure I'm never going to pick you to raid at the end of my channel, at the end of my stream, because you're just here for that. Whereas other people who have just been hanging out, if I see them streaming after I'm done, yeah, I'm going to send my raid over to them because they're just a friendly person in my Twitch chat, much more likely to be getting support from other streamers that way.
Yeah. All right, last 2 questions. I know we're coming up on 2 hours. I'm having a great time. I'm having a great time talking. For those who are watching, we haven't had a chance to sit and do this since before you left Hawaii.
Yeah, like 2018 or something. Like it's been a minute.
Man, yeah. And so this is why I'm enjoying this. But anyways, second to last question. All these different platforms that you can stream on now. So you got Twitch, which is still the go-to. YouTube has the infrastructure and the capability of challenging Twitch, but their execution is always just then you've got, well, do you even have Facebook gaming anymore? I don't think that's I don't even know if that's a thing anymore.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where that's at right now.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And then you got
Kick,
which
is kind of the new big one.
And which is mired in controversy every time we turn around. But in your opinion, with all the different platforms that are out, and this is kind of 2 questions in one, should people multi-stream And if so, what should be the primary platform that you recommend?
That's tough. That's tough. I mean, I would love for the competition for Twitch to be better. Realistically, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I think your platform focus should be more on like what kind of content you feel you're going to be better suited to make.
Mm-hmm.
If a big thing for you is going to be, making YouTube videos where you're recording and you're editing and you're putting that stuff out, I'd say stream on YouTube. Keep that audience consistent, because a lot of the Twitch YouTube overlap is like so small.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so confident that my YouTube audience, people who watch my videos, are not the people watching me live. Those are like, there's the overlaps like 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not big at all. So if you're trying to figure out which one to stream on, and YouTube's going to be your main focus as far as posting videos, I'd recommend streaming on YouTube more than anywhere else. In general, I don't think Twitch has been like dethroned as the streaming first platform. I think it's just still too much in the collective minds as the place to go to watch streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a lot of downfalls, but it's still a lot easier to like browse who's live. The hardest thing about YouTube is like I wouldn't know where to go to find
Oh
somebody
God.
streaming. Like the browsing of a live streamer is just impossible. Only if I'm actively trying to watch the live stream can I find it. I just go to the channel. It's the only way I know how to reliably
Yeah.
find it. So, but that's why if like the videos are your main focus, then streaming is like the tack on to the end there. But I would definitely recommend multi-streaming. I don't really see an issue with that. The only thing is once you become a Twitch affiliate, you sign a thing that says I won't do that.
Yeah.
So, but again, unless streaming is your main focus and your main goal, you don't really have to worry about that too much. Twitch affiliate is not a necessary thing to have unless you're trying to make full-time money from it or something. So you can just kind of ignore that for a while if you want to. If streaming is your main thing, I still would recommend Twitch. I would love to be able to be like, no, go somewhere else, because man, Twitch kind of sucks it up a lot. You could try Kick. My biggest concern with Kick is that it won't be here in a couple years.
Yeah.
Twitch so far is the only one with any longevity. YouTube will still be around, but again, I think it'd be basically impossible to grow a streaming audience on YouTube. You either have to have been banned on Twitch so the people will follow you, or have a YouTube audience already that's pretty big, and then people might watch. But I'll go to YouTube. I watch a decent amount of YouTube. So I'll go to the YouTube page and I'll see one of the people that I follow is live, and they'll have 500,000 subscribers, and they'll be live for 40 people. Like those numbers do not correlate. So
Mm-hmm.
unless your videos are gameplay videos, sure, maybe if like Donkey went live, he'd get a ton of views on YouTube. But even he streams on Twitch, I feel like it is the place for that. If that's
Yeah.
going to be your main focus, is going to be streaming.
And not only that, like streaming on YouTube, YouTube has not figured out how they want to approach streaming. And I say that because at one point it was good to stream. As long as you're making normal videos, you could stream and not be impacted.
Yeah.
Then YouTube constantly, and it fucking pisses me off that they do this, because they like leave the algorithm alone.
Oh
But
my God.
God, I could go into a big rant about that. So YouTube, for those of y'all who don't know, they will make one tweak to the algorithm and completely foobar you. And you just won't know what's going on. When they introduced and were pushing heavily shorts, traditional videos just hit the shitter. Like,
Yeah.
I got to a point where I was like telling Lahua, and it's not just me. I know my friend Avalanche Jared, he does barely streams. He does, long form, horror game documentaries, which are he's really big on that. And I was talking to him, and it come to find out his income 75% was just shot because of this. And it's crazy. So like there was a point where you would stream on YouTube and they would actually, if your streams didn't hit the same level of viewership that your normal videos did, you would actually get pushed out of the algorithm or pushed down, or even
Oh,
it was bad. So like you see a lot of
Jesus.
folks that would create a channel specifically for streaming,
Yeah.
and then but then you can't really get the audience that's on the main channel to go over to your streaming channel.
Nope.
And then like the other thing, like YouTube at one point was pushing variety, and then they're like, no, niche now. So if you do variety content and streaming, you're effectively hurting yourself. And it's just, I've seen people say YouTube will never go away. It's never going to go away.
No.
But are they going to be a competitor to Twitch? They have the capability, but they just don't get the execution.
Yeah.
So
No, that's been a problem for them for a long time. Is like it just feels like they're not putting in the time to make it a competitor to Twitch. And anytime I watch a stream on YouTube, I'm like, well, it's it's fine. It is. But I think a big problem that YouTube has is like the chat kind of sucks.
oh god,
It's
yes.
not nearly as fun to chat as it is in Twitch chat. Like Twitch chat is its own special place, and it is my favorite form of social media is to be in Twitch chat with other people watching whatever we're watching.
Mhm.
And that's my favorite form of social media, and it's the most social. You are there live with other people who are also behind a keyboard, and it's like the only social media where you're confident. It's just a bunch of other people in there behind their keyboards too right now. And I just, without the chat, it's not quite as good. And YouTube chat has never been as good. Twitch has a very long history, and it sucks to watch a lot of it just kind of get washed away. There's been a lot of really terrible mistakes, but there's still a lot of good people working at Twitch, and they're still trying to make it better.
Yeah.
So there have been good things coming down the pipeline too.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that Twitch sees that, yeah, they're the leader in this for a reason. And if they let that get lost to like Kick, that'll suck. Because I mean, while Twitch may be backed by Amazon, which is not exactly the best company in the world with the richest history,
Yeah.
Kick is completely backed by just gambling. And that's just like, it's just not a good basis that I want to be on a streaming platform, that the only reason they can afford to give those good sub splits is because they make their money by, preaching gambling to children. like,
Yeah.
like that kind of sucks. I don't necessarily want to be a part of that.
Yeah. I tried Kick before everyone was hopping on to it, and it just wasn't for me. I'm like, I see it going the way of Mixer. It's the
Yeah.
hot thing. Mixer was the hot thing, and then poof, gone. Facebook gaming. The fact that we don't even know if that's still a thing
I
is
know.
not good.
Well,
That's not,
it's such a weird thing, because I feel like Facebook is like for boomers. Like I'm on Facebook because both my parents message me on Facebook sometimes, and like I don't know. I feel like the audience of gamers and the audience of people on Facebook is not necessarily the same audience.
yeah.
So I've always felt kind of weird about Facebook gaming. I feel like they would do a lot better if they just separated it from Facebook.
Yes.
Like if they had their own streaming platform that wasn't, if it was meta streaming, meta gaming
Yeah.
or something, I'd like feel more comfortable about that being a thing. And they could absolutely make that platform if they wanted to. But
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Last question I got for you. It's a good one.
All right.
What is the history behind the gamer tag ChickenMan?
That's a good question. It's a question that feels like it should be very deep. You know, it feels like it should have some real meaning. But then when you really think about it, the name is ChickenMan. So it's just goofy as hell, right? And so it just comes from a very simple place, which is that uh, I worked in Manoa, right next to the Safeway that's up there.
Mhm.
And I used to go to Safeway and I used to buy their fried chicken almost every single day and eat it for lunch. And so my coworker would call me the Chicken Man because I would go and buy chicken every day for lunch. And then a couple years later, I wanted to change my gamer tag. I had been Python for a long time, which is way too like edgy and want to be cool for me. I was like, I need something goofy. I need something silly that reflects my personality. I thought back and I was like, Chicken Man. That's it. That's the one. And I put it down and I'm stuck with it now. But I'm very happy with it because man, it's I feel like it represents me very well.
Oh, I love it. It's and people don't understand, like, when it comes to, like, when you get into content creating, you start branding. Oh,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to stick with something and have that be across the board. It's You have no idea how many times I've wanted to, like, drop Mekel Casanova because it was something that was thrown up on a whim. For those who don't know this, my grandpa on my dad's side, his last name was Casanova. He was Miguel Casanova.
Ooh.
And so part of me naming that was to honor him. But my name is Mekel, and last name is not Casanova, it's Faltea. So I'm like, all right, let's go with that. And also, like, bouncing off the board with Lehua, and that's how I came to that name. But there's so many times when people are like, Casanova, oh, you're trying to be a playboy. No, I'm not. It's just there's a story behind it. And
Yeah.
I've wanted to rebrand it, but it's at a point where it's unique. I'm like, all right, I'm stuck
Yeah.
with it. It is what it is.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, there's so many high profile creators out there with names that if you really think about it, they're just ridiculous. You know, you just go look at the different creator names. None of them are like they don't like follow some pattern. They're all over the place. That's kind of the cool thing is what at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter too much as long as it is you and you are it, and it's not like you know, a rip off of somebody else's very similar name. If you have like a really standard one, you're going to run into somebody with the same name. I'm not really worried about running into a Chicken Man, and I imagine you're not worried about running into a Mekel Casanova.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a nice thing. Like you said, it's unique.
Yeah. So with that being said, is there anything you want to leave the audience with before we go?
Whew, I don't know. I think we covered a lot of a lot of area today. You know, feel free to follow me on Twitch or subscribe to my YouTube. I am ChickenMan SC on all the platforms. The SC stands for StarCraft 2. If you don't like StarCraft 2, you're probably not going to find much, but happy to have you anyways.
Yeah. And I'll leave links to everything down in the description.
To just have a chat. It's lovely.
Second question. Would you be down, since you officiated our wedding last time, And God, it's coming up on 10 years almost. Would you be interested in doing that again? Because we're thinking about redoing our vows.
Oh, I would love to. Absolutely.
Okay. I know she'd be
Yeah.
happy to, because we've been talking about that too. I was like, you
Oh,
know, she's
man.
like, yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, absolutely. I would be honored to. Honored to. I think back to that you had me do that, had me officiate, and I always just like my heart swells to have friends that want to be there for that.
That was awesome, man, and we definitely appreciate you doing that for us, because that is so crazy. Like the planning for the wedding was all over the place and got complicated and all this other stuff, and then we just like, all right, beach wedding, let's just keep it simple. No, so this time I think I'm not even wearing a suit. I'm gonna wear a traditional Samoan
Oh yeah.
style. I've gone on this whole bohemian like vibe. Like a lot of people, like once they saw like me doing this with my hair, they're like,
Yeah.
weren't you bald? Yeah, I was at one point. You know, I've been actively growing my hair back and just changing my look up, and like,
That's awesome.
I'm not in the corporate world. Fuck that. I don't have to be clean cut
No.
anymore.
You can do what you want to do. It's a beautiful thing.
So with that being said, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I'm glad we finally got to do this. I know this went a little long, probably a whole lot longer than you expected, but you know, it's always great catching up with you, and
Yeah.
we definitely need to do this again. And yeah, this is
For
fun.
sure. Yeah, that has been awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So, people, you can find this episode of the podcast on both shows, available on every major podcasting platform: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. We're there. I keep forgetting we're there. YouTube Music, since Google Podcasts is gone. Google never stays with anything, unfortunately. Yeah. Anyways, Google or YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, all that stuff. You can find it. Just look up either the Kasanova podcast or DeckedUP. It's going to be on both shows. And even though those are two very different audiences, there is, interestingly enough, a lot of crossover. I slapped my mic. I'm so sorry, Mike. Are you okay? Anyways. With that being said, we will catch you guys in the next one, and we'll see you around. Ahui ho. Mahalo for your time for listening to this episode of the Kasanova Podcast, and one podcast in Hawaii. If you found this episode to be incredibly enjoyable, informative, or if there's anything you gain from it, or any insight, or anything that's good that you really, really enjoy, make sure whatever platform you're listening to it on, or if you're watching it, leave a comment if that's available on the platform, like it, share it around with someone you think would enjoy it, and give us some feedback, because your feedback is exactly what we need to keep this show going. And if you're wondering what are some ways that you could support the show, we got various ways. We've got Patreon, we have channel memberships over on YouTube, as well as Subscribestar, Coffee, and so much more. Links for everything will be in the description of the podcast, so make sure you go check that out. And with all that being said, I hope you have an aloha rest of your day.
Let them know that I'm next level. I'm a whole new kind of guy. Yeah. Yes, at the top spot, in case you forgot. We the ones that got the block hot, bullet got the shot.